how Americans are getting dumber.
You wanna know how I got this dislike ratio? I make a video praising the Soviet Union, and nobody bats an eye.
Of course.
I make a video praising the United States, and everybody loses their minds. Okay, fine. I hear you.
Of course.
You only want to hear things that confirm what you already believe.
Tell me
I
I'm
get it.
special.
Let's talk about why Americans are stupid.
Say what you will, the Americans are gonna be pretty happy about this one either way.
There's a famous episode of the Jimberly Kimberly live show where clueless residents of Los Angeles fail to name a single country.
Is it South Africa?
Yeah, the country
West
of Asia.
Africa.
Greenland or Iceland or something?
Although these are no doubt cherry-picked, and I'm sure if you stood in a big city all
They're not cherry-picked. I have seen the statistics of education. You don't need to cherry-pick that.
day and shoved a camera in people's faces and asked them questions, you'd be able to find 3 minutes worth of people who couldn't answer on the spot.
Miss, for $1, name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yeah.
But the stereotype that Americans are ignorant about the wider world is largely true.
Surprisingly, yeah. Well, not actually surprising. Well, I guess it's surprising to a degree, right?
These people can't name a country because they don't care about other countries.
Also
40%
true.
of Americans have a passport, compared to 66% of Canadians and 76% of Brits.
Okay.
In 1994, it was only 10% of Americans.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean Americans have gotten more globe-trotting since then. It was because after an above-average episode of the news, it became mandatory to need a passport when entering Canada and Mexico. So it's fair to say that a very small percent of Americans will be leaving this corner of the world.
Canada for the not so good healthcare, but free at least, and Mexico for the not so free and not so legal activities.
World. As I said in a previous video, America has all you'd ever want geographically within her borders. Why go anywhere else? The foreign culture.
Because it's America. Oh, that's why you want to go somewhere else.
Maybe? Americans don't care about that either. On the list of the highest grossing movies in the USA, you have to go all the way to 520th place to get a movie that isn't American. It's
Okay.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, by the way. Couldn't even beat The Nutty Professor. Somebody please
Oh,
check up
wow.
on Ang Lee. I think he might have killed himself. Neither do global affairs hold the average American's interest.
The Nutty Professor's not a great movie.
When asked about the Kyoto Climate Accords, who the Taliban are, or who Nicolas Sarkozy is, Americans are woke.
I don't know who Nicolas Sarkozy is. I just recognize the surname Sarkozy. Also, that's not how you pronounce him. It's Sarkozy.
Woefully underinformed compared to other developed nations. In 2009, only half knew that last year's Olympics were held in Beijing. Oh, but of course,
I mean, who cares about where it's held? It's in China. That's the problem.
when asked to name American celebrities, they had no trouble at all. At the same time, we non-Americans are flooded with American culture. Some British people know more about American politics and history than their own.
Once you're dropped.
Well, I don't blame the Brits for knowing more about America than themselves, because, well, the British Isles are just a failed colony of America anyway. They should know more about their true history at this point.
Dropped into the trench, depth or the z-axis is
It's Z-axis, you floppy-haired moron. France had to
Bro.
pass laws banning radio stations from playing too much American music. There are only 2 countries in the world where Coca-Cola is not sold. Wait, scratch that. This journalist from Finland bought a Coke at a water park in Pyongyang in 2017. And what's this hiding in the background of somebody's holiday snaps at the National Hotel de Cuba? Look, you know something's up when remote tribesmen in the Amazon rainforest who don't even have electricity know who Michael Jackson is.
Well, that's pretty good. I honestly think at least they're getting the big parts of the culture.
Americans used to be quite well read. After the Second World War, Americans consumed 63% of all the newspapers in the world, and they used
Yeah, and now instead of reading they're teaching young kids that you're probably not the gender you were born with, because that's heresy.
this to their advantage. In 1948, the newly formed United Nations created a list of human rights that all countries should strive to uphold. One area that Americans were particularly interested in was this one, Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression and opinion, and receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers.
Ooh.
What the USA wanted was a completely level playing field. Anyone can buy any media from any other country.
Okay.
A global free market of ideas, released from the shackles of censorship. For if anyone can gain access to the truth, we cannot be marched into the same kind of ignorance and intolerance that characterized the Axis nations of the war. This is
And look at America now.
admirable. Freedom of speech is a core value of the United States and many other allies.
Oh, look at that. It's the U.S. Constitution and whatnot. Man, we want to hear something funny. People from the U.S. think, oh, we're so special. We have the Constitution. It tells us what we can do and gives us freedoms. Do you want to hear something funny? North Korea has something like that, and it's even better. It gives them even more freedoms. The communists had something like this, but it gave them way more freedoms than your one does. But somehow magically it didn't work out, did it? Every country who went to the dark side had a thing like this, and it gave them way more freedoms than the Constitution in the US ever has or ever will give, and yet it didn't work out so great.
Allied nations. But some delegates, like those from India, questioned the US's motives. If you believe in an equal access to information and culture, shouldn't you redistribute some of your media creating capacity to developing nations like ours, so that we have an equal opportunity to tell the world our stories? The Americans would not budge.
Good.
Of course, they knew deep down that India was right. The American delegation to the convention was highly populated by journalists and media magnates. They knew that if countries couldn't afford their own news, they would be increasingly reliant on buying news from American wire companies like the Associated Press, which was good for both the media companies' profits, but also the US State Department, who would no doubt have been licking their lips at the prospect of 1 billion people reading news with a specific American.
Man, look at this, and now the governments need to pretty much almost subsidize all these media companies because they're on the verge of collapse because literally no one cares about them anymore. It's insanity.
Spin on it.
Like, the best place to get news is Twitter. I mean, X or whatever you want to call it nowadays. And it's still the best.
In 1944, the Associated Press sold news to 38 countries. Within 8 years, that had doubled to 70 countries. In the 1950s, around half of films shown in European and Asian cinemas were American, 2/3 in Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. Which makes sense. Americans made grand Technicolor films brimming with Hollywood sparkle because they could.
And now the Hollywood sparkle is the most wokest garbage you can ever find in the 7 seas. Wow, how... Dude, imagine America was not a laughingstock at some point. Like, get someone who's born 10 years ago and they would never think that unless they're American, you know? Europe currently is literally looking at America like as a all-you-can eat free popcorn theater disaster buffet.
Could afford to. Whereas war-torn Europe, impoverished Mexico, and nuclear-obliterated Japan were stuck making small...
they just got slightly obliterated. It could have been more, but they chickened out.
...scale comedies to keep up morale. One of the most popular French movies in 40s France was 1949's The Big Day, a mostly plotless movie where a whimsical French postman gets into wacky mischief in a quaint village. There just wasn't the money or resources for anything else.
No, it was just the French. Like, you know, no one likes them.
Hollywood captured the European public's imagination, and they wanted more. But why is it only a one-way street? Because while you can do or say whatever you want within the United States, the Constitution also says that the American government can regulate what goes in or out. During the Cold War, anything that might be considered communist propaganda could be seized by the post office and never delivered. Books or even souvenirs from communist countries, for example. Pamphlets criticizing US foreign policy. Immigration reached a low point in the early 70s, with only 4.7% of Americans being foreign-born, limiting Americans' interaction with different cultures. Obviously, it wasn't totally like North Korea. Plenty of foreign movies and music were allowed into the US. But the media that caught on was either already Americanized or so plastically exotic that it doesn't really say anything about the culture where it's from. The Beatles were British, yes, but they got their start covering American rock and roll musicians. When John Lennon stepped out of line, the American government made sure that he knew it. Movies imported from Japan were mostly samurai flicks, and very few movies set in the modern day. The film Iki...
And now America is full of weeaboos. Oh boy. Man, this is getting dark real fast, huh?
Ikiru is widely considered the best Japanese film ever made, if you ignore people who have never felt the touch of a woman. But this existential drama about a depressed, lonely man was only given a limited release in California, and the poster was edited to feature a stripper who is only in the movie for like 1 minute. The narrow stream of...
Yeah, that's pretty accurate for America. Oh, does this movie have strippers? No, well then let's put one in anyway.
European movies that made it into the USA came in the form of the French New Wave cinema. Movies that were stylistically inspired by American films, but also so stuffy that few audiences would ever want to watch them anyway.
Qu'est-ce que ça peut te faire?
Ça ne va pas, non?
Non, rien. Je voulais dire cette phrase avec une idée précise. Je ne savais pas quelle était la meilleure façon d'exprimer cette idée. Ou plutôt,
Again, there's a reason no one likes the French, okay?
je le savais.
Or Italy. Or Germany. Or Sweden. Or, you know, the potato aisles.
Maintenant, je ne sais plus.
This was further stifled by the Haze Code, a set of extremely strict regulations that were in place from 1934 to 1968. If you've ever wondered why old black and white films seem so dry, it's because of these rules. Some things that were completely banned from ever being shown in any film included bad guys winning. All movies had to end with the police outwitting the evil criminals or the criminals causing their own demise.
Okay.
Any nudity, even the silhouette of a booba, is an instant ban. Blood or dead bodies. When people get shot in old films, they usually just clutch the wound, but no actual blood is seen. Pointing a gun at somebody in the same frame. This is why guns are always held at waist height. Kissing for longer than 3 seconds. Interracial couples. White people as slaves. Criticism of religion or of any other country. Naturally, this prevented the more artistically liberal European films from being shown in American cinemas, and when they did get a US release, they were usually edited to remove the violence in movies and sex on TV to comply with the good old-fashioned values. At least until the rules were abolished in 1968 and replaced by the age rating system we have today.
Oh boy.
Even as the Cold War
Because the age rating just works so well, as we all know.
Ended and the internet gave Americans unparalleled access to the rest of the world and all of human knowledge, they still preferred to hang out on a handful of American-made websites dominated by Americans. The insular culture of 20th century America has carried over to the 21st. Tightened border security after Septiembre Undécimo means foreign musicians can have a hard time getting visas. In 2002, the touring visa of a German orchestra was cancelled after it was discovered the cellist had a criminal record for shoplifting a pair of tweezers in 1991.
Germany is just the literal worst.
When they tried again for a visa in 2004,
Hopefully
the cellist had to
denied.
undergo an hour-long interview with Homeland Security and had to physically pick up his visa from the US Embassy. Global cultures might be more present in American media, but they're always through the lens.
Dude, it's just hilarious. You look at this and you know, oh, if you want to get in our country, you need to pretty much just, you know, go through all of the events that happened in your life while we interrogate you while using torture methods. And meanwhile, if you're on the Mexican border smuggling children for prostitution, That one's free. We're letting you in. We're waving you with the hand. Like, America, get your shit priorities straight.
Of American characters, such as The Last Samurai starring Tom Cruise, where he plays a white guy in 1870s Japan.
I mean, I wish he played a black guy, but that didn't happen.
7 Years in Tibet, another American in China. Indiana Jones, American in Egypt.
Nice.
The Bourne Identity, American in France. Inglourious Bastards, Americans in German-occupied France. And for the ladies in the audience, Mamma Mia. For a movie set on a Greek island, there's not a single Greek person in the entire movie.
That's a good thing, also.
Is there any hope for America, or are they destined to be a stinky, dumb redneck country forever? Maybe. In 2000, 92% of the music in the USA Top 50 was American, making it the second most insulated market in the world after Pakistan. But today it's more like 60%, with Brits, Canadians, Latin Americans and Africans making themselves more seen in the charts.
Wait, is this video trying to tell us that Americans are not smart because their movies are all from America and not from other countries? Is this video really trying to tell us Americans don't know where Africa is because they don't have any music from Africa? Don't you have blacks in America who are always yelling about how they wish they could return to the motherland of Africa, and then they point like to, I don't know, Australia on the map? How do you explain that?
Each year there are more foreign films nominated at the Academy Awards than ever before. What used to be an American-only pay-to-win awards show is now an international pay-to-win awards show. As social media platforms have an element
also, no one cares about that shit anymore. if Jaden Smith's wife, no, if what's that woman's name? Anyway, if her wife isn't hitting someone on the stage with a slap, you know it's not gonna be fun.
Randomness in what they show users, there is a higher chance of Americans being shown videos from other countries, forcing them to take note of what is happening. It seems the revolution will be TikToked. I've been giving the impression throughout this video that it's all or most Americans who are terminally uneducated. But American ignorance isn't as evenly distributed as you'd think. That study I mentioned earlier, when adjusting for English proficiency, income and education levels, Americans are really no different from their European counterparts, and in some cases, marginally smarter.
Press X to doubt a lot. This statistic, by the way, is very incorrect, because you see, the thing is, all the people with higher education in America are from not America, and that's what's counted in this. Okay, if you are someone who is being the top 10% earner in the UK, you literally have no reason to not go to America and triple your wealth. That's what everyone does. The smart people in America are not Americans, and the new generation of Americans is getting passed through college even without bribes. Now in America you don't need to bribe anyone to get through to college. You just need to say, well, today I'm feeling like a napkin and my gender identity is a window frame. And there you go! There you go! Standing applause ovations and you pass through college. Congratulations. Guess who you are? That's right, the new district judge probably. That's America. Okay? It's fucked in the next 10 years. Have you seen remember the bridge collapse? Why did it happen? Because Americans thought it would be funny to make a bridge purely designed by women, architects and engineers who don't actually have qualifications to do so. Dude, houses are gonna collapse, things are gonna flood, the electricity is gonna go out. How many places are already in America talking about doing mandatory blackouts? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, let's switch to green energy. Wait a minute, can we actually sustain green energy? What does sustain mean? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a show. Again, I'm European. I don't have to worry about that crap.
Knowledge about the wider world even correlates to political views, and not in the way that you
Oh, yeah, that's actually true. I always forget about this. But the Democrats think that Europe is so progressive when, on average, the people that are considered on the left in Europe would be considered by the crazy Democrats literally like crazy right-wingers. It's great.
think. A 2022 survey asked Americans.
Every time I bring up healthcare in any video as a joke, there's some Americans saying, "Oh, you idiot! Your country has free healthcare." One, you don't know from what country I am. Two, you idiot! There's no such thing as free healthcare. You're always paying for it in some way. Free healthcare that you have used. Guess what? I haven't used it because I don't let that go that far. No one's using free healthcare unless forced.
12 questions about the world, such as who is the British Prime Minister? What does the Indian flag look like?
Ironically, the British Prime Minister is probably someone from India.
And what this symbol represents. The people who answered the
collapse of Britain.
Most questions correctly were committed Democrats and committed Republicans. Swing voters, those enlightened centrist chads, were the stupidest. Only 40% of moderate Republicans could name the US Secretary of State, compared to 60% of convicted Republicans. Only half of moderate Democrats knew that the USMCA trade agreement replaced NAFTA, compared to 66% of convicted Democrats. Also, I just
thought that's not actually well, it's almost a 50% swing, but not really.
It was funny that the more Americans know about the European Union, the more favourable view they have of it. So are Americans ignorant? Many of them are, but it isn't their fault. It's a mix of geography, American imperialism, Cold War paranoia, moral puritanism, and economic factors that create a paradoxical nation that is both the most expansive empire, but also an informational prison of their own making. God bless you, stupid bastards.
Okay, not gonna lie. I think this was extremely questionable, but it was made by someone British, so... Do you want to believe something a British guy? I wouldn't. He's probably gonna get stabbed by a plastic knife at school, or when he goes outside, or in his house. And then he's gonna get taken to prison and put in there because he got stabbed by a knife and that's illegal. And then when he gets taken there, they're gonna put him in a cell and say, "Oi mate, you can't park there," and it's gonna be bad. Anyway, that was the Brit monkey. He's a Brit, so don't be happy. Anyway, this was Cruiser Since, and thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.